I don't know about you, but I always struggle with cravings and bloating that time of month and just feel a little off when I get my period. This is something that's been a challenge for me for a very long time, and I recently started taking Hormone Harmony to manage my PMS, and it really supports my hormonal balance and regulation. I feel like since I've been using it, my sleep quality has improved and it's relieved some of my mood swings. And the biggest benefit, feeling like myself again. That's what women mention over and over in their reviews. And there are 17,000 reviews for Hormone Harmony. Women cannot stop talking about it on social media. Literally, a bottle of Hormone Harmony is sold every 24 seconds. Happy Mammoth, the company that created Hormone Harmony, is dedicated to making women's lives easier. It has zero sugar and it's gluten-free, dairy-free, non-GMO, and third-party tested. For a limited time, you can get 15% off your entire first order at happymammoth.com. Just use the code DATEABLE at checkout. That's happymammoth.com and use the code DATEABLE for 15% off today.
Are you like me and you love the convenience of ordering out, but between the inflated prices and tips and the less than healthy menu options, it really makes you think twice before ordering, right? Well, Gobble's here to help busy people like us enjoy healthier home cooking without the hassle. Instead of meal prepping and shopping, you just customize your weekly menu, get your delivery, and spend as little as 15 minutes to serve a delicious homemade dinner any night of the week. And this week, I made chicken fettuccine that was simply divine. And both Julie and I made it at the same time. I know, we're so cute. And we could not stop raving about how delicious it was. It was so easy to whip up in less than 15 minutes, and everything I needed was already in the box. For our wonderful listeners, we have a special deal to help you get started for less. See what a difference Gobble will make for your household. Right now, they're offering our listeners a fantastic limited time deal. Get $120 off across 4 boxes, plus free shipping and free cookies. The cookies are so good. Go to gobble.com/dateable podcast. That's GOBBLE.com/DATEABLE podcast today. This offer is not available on their home site, so don't miss out. Hi, I'm Yui Xu.
And I'm Julie Kraftchick.
We're active daters turned dating insiders.
Here to dive into everything modern dating and relationships.
Welcome to Dateable. Hello, Dateables.
Welcome to another episode in season 19.
Listen, there's a ton of dating advice out there that will tell you to adapt to modern dating culture.
But Dateable is going to liberate you from it. Well, that is our intention. We will no longer be burdened to how modern dating works, but rather create how we want it to work.
We laugh about this, but it's a dire situation. If we keep just going into the system and feeding the system, we are headed somewhere really terrible. It's like what we're calling the love crisis. So many people are giving up on love because modern dating is setting us up to fail.
Yeah. And like we've said, if you're new here or maybe returning, our mission for this season is to really build up this notion of we can be the agent of change. Like we can make it different because we have our book coming out in January. So it's all a lead up to the big book where we really go into how to make dating actually work for you and have the relationship you've always wanted.
Right. What we want to explore is rising above the daily conundrums of dating. We hear it all the time, the frustrations that you've all expressed. We hear you loud and clear, but there is a better way. Mm-hmm. And there's a more enjoyable way. Like imagine actually enjoying dating, how pleasant it could be. And it is our mission to explore what that could look like if you actually enjoyed dating.
And I'm not saying this to diminish how hard dating is, because it certainly is. But I think once you're in the thick of like heartbreak and, relationship challenges, that's when it really sets in that like worrying about the person that ghosted you or what text to send was pretty irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. So I'm really glad that we're going here with one of our guests today, Kylie McBeath, about her journey and how much, she had to kind of push through and find her way to ultimately find that love life that served her and now be in a happy marriage with a baby boy.
She's married to Mark Gross, but they do have a baby boy. She's not married to the baby boy.
Did I say that?
She is?
Did it come out that way?
I'm like, is she we can't call Mark Groves a baby boy.
Oh my
He's
God,
a very
that is
nice
not
boy.
what I meant. I meant she is married and has a baby boy. Maybe there was a word missing.
But I am obsessed with this couple. We had Mark Groves on last season, season 18, episode 16, called Creating a Relationship 2.0 with Mark Groves. He is an expert. He is someone who studies relationships. He's a relationship coach. He's done all this research. And he was in a relationship with Kylie for 5 years, and they broke up because he just could not figure it out. She was not in it with him.
Yeah.
And he talks through his side of the story of how they were able to come out of that and actually create a relationship 2.0. But after we heard his story, we thought, all right, we got to get her side. There's so much more to the story than his.
Yeah. And we actually, like, for context, were initially supposed to speak to both of them together. And then since they are new parents, with scheduling conflicts because we had to move the recording, Kylie couldn't make it. So we ended up just doing with Mark. And then we said we're so glad that that's the way it unfolded because we were able to go a lot deeper with both of them. And it's interesting because I feel like Mark's story is something I relate to of, you know, being that person that wants to take the next steps all the time and either having a partner that can't or is like a little slower to like get there. So it was really interesting for me to hear the opposite dynamic of Kylie, who identifies more, you know, as having or had in the past, she's come out of it, more of those avoidant tendencies where Mark had more of the anxious ones.
And speaking of that, this is such a great episode. If you are someone who maybe feels more avoidant, has those avoidant tendencies, and you always find yourself with an anxious partner and you trying to understand that relationship dynamic.
I think anyone too that just wants to change their relationship patterns because at the end of the day, like Kylie wanted to be all in with Mark. It wasn't that she didn't. There was something in her way that was keeping her stuck that was within her. So if you're also in the boat of you want that partnership, you want the happiness, but there's something keeping you stuck that's standing between you and getting there, then this is also for you.
So you're going to remove a lot of blockages after hearing this episode. You'll learn what it means to take a break. Many of you talk about doing dating sabbaticals, taking a pause from dating apps. What does that mean? And how can you make the pause as intentional and fruitful and beneficial as possible versus just inaction?
Clearly, the episode title is about a no-man diet that Kylie did. It goes even deeper than that of, you know, how you let go. But there's something about this like elimination method. Like we think about it, you made this analogy, Yue, of like when you're allergic to something, you do an elimination diet to see what is actually getting in your way. So it's always like we need to try that next thing. Like we need the new strategy, the new way to make it work. But oftentimes we don't actually look at what is, you know, getting in our way that's internal and how do we figure out what it is that's actually blocking us by doing an elimination type sort diet to figure out the root cause.
You'll also learn how to instill more trust in yourself so you can take more agency in your love life. And many a times we feel like, oh, a relationship will make me feel secure. A relationship will give me the freedom I've been looking for. And you'll learn from Kylie's situation, she had the guy, she had the relationship, but she did not have herself.
Yeah. It's like, how do you decide what's things in the relationship to address versus your own shit? I think that's a big one that a lot of us wonder about. And, you know, reflecting back, I'm like, I did a no-man diet without realizing it was a no-man diet. And it's all about like, how do you use that time to get really clear about what it is that is holding you back?
Yeah. A major light bulb moment for me in this episode in talking to Kylie is there are certain issues and blockages that we can't do in a relationship. I understand we need to develop the relationship skills and only way to do that is in a relationship, but shit, there's some shit we need to work through individually. And it gets really murky when you're trying to decide, do I heal in a relationship or do I heal this on my own?
It just is a reminder to me every time we have conversations like this, how dynamic and complex we are as humans. Yeah. She goes into, you know, all the stuff that was causing her to feel this way that had zero to do with Mark. It came long before him from her past. Yes. as someone, this is like kind of this light bulb moment for me all the time. As someone that always takes things personally, it's a reminder that it's not always so personal. A lot of it is just the way this person operates and what's going on for them that literally has nothing to do with you. But we make dating and relationships so personal because they feel like a reflection of our worth. And again, just another reminder that it really is not.
Yeah, everyone's going through their own shit. Everyone has their own journey, and you'll hear Kylie's journey. She is an incredible storyteller and speaker, and so you'll love this episode. And for anybody who can identify with Mark's side, like Julie did, I think it will be really mind-blowing to hear this side from the person who was not looking for that commitment, from the person who just didn't feel ready.
Yeah, that wanted it, but still couldn't get there.
Yeah, right.
And we'll make sure to link that in the show notes too. And you can obviously, see other relevant episodes. We'll link a couple that you might like after listening to this one. But UA and I just love talking to Kylie. We got off the call with her and we were just like, oh, we need to move this one up earlier in the season. It's just too good of a conversation. So thank you, Kylie, for being a great guest. We're glad that we had you and Mark.
So good and so related to our upcoming book. Did you know we have a book coming out?
Did you know? Were you aware?
Did you? Oh my God. Newsflash.
Hey,
you may have not heard this.
Maybe not everyone knows because I think we
True.
think that
You're
we're
right.
constantly talking about this book, but even
It's
posts on
true.
Instagram, you post and a fraction of our followers even see them. So make sure you're getting all the latest.
So
Yeah.
we're going to annoy the shit out of you with our book announcement. But yeah, hey, surprise, we have a book. It's coming out in January of next year, but you can pre-order it now. You can go to howtobedateable.com. That's where you pre-order. If you haven't heard this before, we have to tell you how important pre-orders are. It really counts towards what bookstores will pick up our book, how these lists, the list, everybody wants to be on a list. They won't even look at you if your pre-order numbers aren't that great. So it just helps us open more doors and also establish our credibility, and also just makes us feel good when you pre-order.
It does. I was with a friend of ours who admittedly, she was like, oh, it's been on my list of things to do. I keep forgetting. And then her new boyfriend who I met, who was wonderful.
Wonderful.
So we went to this concert and my partner brought his copy because we thought we'd have a lot of downtime. So her boyfriend was flipping through it and he's like, oh, this is actually a lot of really good information. This is super interesting. And he's like, I'm going to go pre-order. And then she's like, oh, I should do that too. And they both pre-ordered right there. I'm like, good.
Okay, good. See? Okay.
So
great.
if you didn't do it yet, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
But do it today. Do it while you're thinking about it, right this second, no time like the present. His take was, if I don't do it now, I'm going to forget. So I'm just going to do it.
Yes. Make a mental note.
Yeah. Go to Amazon or booksellers, anything. It's there. But you can also find it on our website, howtobedateable.com or dateablepodcast.com. So many ways. But really the reason why I keep talking about it is because we do believe in it so much. We really believe this is our best work to date. And by reading this, it's going to help unblock so much that you might be going through. So that's why we keep talking about it, because in the deepest parts of our hearts, we believe that.
Mm-hmm. We truly do.
Other announcements, leave us a rating and review. Help us get to that 1K. Also, we want to obviously keep continuing to spread the word about this book. Having 1K plus reviews helps so much that we can get credible guests. We can be on podcasts. It just opens so many doors. So if you're listening to this for free every week and you want to give back, all you need to do is leave that rating and review. If you're on Spotify, just leave the rating. Unfortunately, there's no place to put a review, but all good. It helps a million times. So thank you. And at Dateable Podcasts, that's where you can go and follow us on Instagram. So you can see all the upcoming news. And we also have revived the email newsletter. So if you're not on that yet, go to our website and sign up. We're experimenting still with the format, but I'm really digging how it's going. We really want to make sure that we're giving knowledge in every issue. Is that the right way to call it? I guess an issue.
Sure, why not? Limited edition.
Yes, everything. We want to make sure we're giving you some sort of aha moment or inspiration or revelation or something that can help you on your dating journey.
Yes.
Okay. Well, before we get into it with Kylie, let's hear from our sponsors. You You may have heard me mention in our newsletter that I'm in the process of planning a trip to Italy, and I don't want to be that American tourist that doesn't know any Italian. What better way than to use Rosetta Stone, the most trusted learning program available on desktop or as an app that truly immerses you in the language you want to learn. Rosetta Stone is the trusted expert for 30 years and millions of users with 25 languages offered. The whole process just feels intuitive, like you're picking up the language naturally, first with words, then phrases, and then sentences. Their true accent feature even gives you feedback on your pronunciation, something I may even need sometimes in English. This is an absolute steal right now. With 50% off, your lifetime membership includes all 25 languages, so you have this for any and all trips you need in life. So don't put off learning that language. There's no better time than right now to get started. Dateable listeners get Rosetta Stone's lifetime membership for 50% off. Visit rosettastone.com/today. That's 50% off unlimited access to 25 language courses for the rest of your life. Redeem your 50% off at rosettastone.com/today today. We're officially entering fall, and I don't know about you, but this is by far my favorite season. Between pumpkin spice lattes and sweater weather, it's the best. And Quince makes it easy to shift my wardrobe from summer to fall with high-quality items that don't blow my budget. I'm obsessed with the tan cashmere sweater I got from them. It's one of their signature items, and it's just so soft and luxurious. And $50. That's unheard of for cashmere. And the quality is to the same level of luxury brands that cost a heck lot more. All Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands, and that's because Quince partners directly with top factories, cutting out the cost to the middleman and passes the savings on to us. Make switching season a breeze with Quince's high-quality closet essentials. Go to quince.com/dateable for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/dateable to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/dateable. Okay, let's hear it from Kylie about the No Man diet.
Kylie, so nice to have you on Dateable. We are very much looking forward to this conversation because, as you know, we spoke to your husband, Mark, last season about how you were both able to rebuild your relationship into a relationship 2.0. But he's so good. He's like, I'm not going to speak for Kylie. The parts of the story I cannot tell. So it's very nice. But also Julie and I thought, okay, there are some holes in this story that we need to fill and we need to get Kylie.
We're so happy to have you.
Thank you for being on the show.
I'm so grateful to be here, and I'm happy to fill in all the gaps. All the gaps of the story that definitely need to be told in order to bring it all to life for sure.
Wonderful. Well, I mean, we might as well just start at the beginning because when he was talking about it, he was telling us how he felt this nudging feeling like you weren't fully in it. Can you kind of share your perspective?
Yeah, oh my gosh. Okay, so for some context for the listeners, it's like, you always start to tell a story like, where do I want to begin? How far do we want to go?
Yeah.
I was about 10 months on the heels of a divorce, actually, when when Mark and I kind of had our first initial conversation. And so for those of you who've been divorced, maybe you don't, but for me, I had swung from an anxious attachment style in my marriage to like complete avoidant after divorce. I was like, I want nothing to do with love. I never want to go through that experience again. That was so incredibly painful. So I had my guards up. I had my hands like this. And one of the things after my divorce that I had uncovered in my healing journey was I need to make sure that I am financially competent. Like I'm able to stand on my own 2 feet to not fall back into codependent patterns or codependent dynamic again. So I was very clear on that. So I was like full steam ahead in my business. And I was like, we're getting this off the ground. We're going. And that's beautiful. And then Mark enters said picture. And was my whole financial situation buttoned up? No. But Mark was all of the things. Yeah. He was the guy who was focusing on the growth and he could meet me. He was empathetic. It was a yes, right? There was like so many parts that were a yes, but there were still some fundamental pieces that I had not actually integrated from my divorce that I knew were imperative before moving into the relationship. So I had that kind of on the shoulder, but the yes outweighed the no. So I entered into the relationship because I was excited and all the things. And I was like, well, I can just build the financial foundation from within the relationship. And, from a logical perspective or from looking at it from a rational perspective, I'm like, yeah, that actually tracks for sure. But as life would have it, about 6 months into our relationship, I had a dream. And I don't know if Mark talked to you about the dream.
Yes, he did. Yes. We want to hear more.
The dream is a juicy one. I'm a dreamer. I receive a lot of messages from my dreams and guidance from my dreams. I'm in relationship with them. And so this dream came, and it was a dream of a burning house. And Mark and I were in the burning house. And the only message that came through, and it was a benevolent voice, very calm, but it was like, it's time to go. And I woke up with that dream, like just like in my face. And I was like, no, what does that even mean? So I went into a full panic, you guys, because I'm like, no, I don't want to go.
Because you're probably already feeling it a little too. And it like reconfirms something.
Exactly. It was reconfirming that you still had work to do, that you haven't done, and it's not the right time, and da 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 da. But no, of course, I was not letting that fly. I was like, no, that's just trauma. Right. So instead of taking the dream into further consideration, I kind of just stuffed it into the deepest part of my recesses and let it live and fester there until it came back. And Mark could feel that. We could all feel that. And I named the dream to Mark, and he was like, well, what does it mean? And I think it's just trauma from my divorce. Like, I'm afraid to get closer. I'm afraid to move into committed partnership. I'm afraid to get married again and all this stuff. That's kind of how I labeled it, which worked for a little bit.
Which is all true, right?
It's all true. And that's just it. Like, with more capacity, more awareness now, I can kind of see all of the different shades of that dream. But in the moment, that was my truth, was like, I'm just going to label it as this, because to be honest, what took over in the driving seat at that time was the fear of being alone, the fear of not actually being financially competent yet, and still hooking into the relationship in the previous way that I had historically hooked into relationships, which is, he's my savior. He's the one that can protect me. He's the one that can save me. And so it was like very small in comparison to my previous marriage, but it was still operating. Like, I'd still not fully addressed that part, that piece. So my old narratives of being small, like a damsel in distress, I need to be staved, were still at play in our relational dynamic, and really blocked me from being able to see that dream in a different way, which is all a part of the process. And we talk about in the book, is like why resourcing for me was imperative to even reach a different truth or a different interpretation of the dream.
Right. So you went through this journey of interpreting the dream in one way, and then ultimately coming to the end of that first iteration of your relationship. Yeah. What was it? What was that moment of epiphany where you came to that conclusion?
Oh gosh, it was like many moments. First of all, the dream started coming back.
Oh,
I had the dream like another 6 times.
Oh my God. You're like, I can't ignore this anymore.
6 times a charm, right?
Exactly. And it was just that I could not ignore it. And, from a developmental perspective, when I look back on that whole journey in relationship 1.0, what I still remain committed to in that relationship, building the internal and external foundation of financial competence. Like, that was a really big piece. And there's so many parts associated with that for me, of like being able to trust myself, my work, my vocation, my needs. Like, I had to like work on all of those things to be able to step forward in my life's work and actually receive financial compensation for it. So by the time I got to the dream reoccurring, I was actually bringing in revenue. Like, I was actually financially competent. And that's why the dream shifted. That's why there was enough safety in my system to be like, you know what? I got to listen to this dream in a new way.
Interesting.
Does that make sense? Like, it's like, through the journey, my nervous system had enough safety to orient to the dream in a way that allowed me to make a different choice.
So when Mark was talking about your relationship 1.0, he was talking about how, like, you guys were living together, you were talking about marriage in the future, but there was still that something that felt like you were holding back. Like, can you identify that now, all these years later, like what it was that was that gap outside of, like, obviously trauma, divorce, the internal stuff?
Yeah. So the biggest gap for me was, it came down to, I didn't trust myself. I did not trust that I could be okay on my own and alone. And so there was this part of me, like, where I was still orienting from a childlike place or an immature place in the relational dynamic. And that was the gap. How could I move forward and have children if I was still in this like immature feminine or maiden role? It was like, no, you need to mature. And the only way that I could mature based off of my soul's path and growth was to honor the dream and honor my intuition again. listen, to honor what messages were coming forward. And so the gap was small, but it was deep. It was an invitation to reclaim my soul, myself, my agency, my fire in ways that no one in my lineage had done in a very long time. Because me breaking free from those roles was a disruption of all of the intergenerational scripts that had been running in my matrilineal line, my mother line for thousands of years. So it was big, small, and deep. It was all of it. It was hard.
Kylie, it's wild because I took inventory of all the women in my family the other day.
Yeah.
And I came to that conclusion too. I am the first woman to truly experience this next level of independence.
Yeah.
And I don't really have a model for it in my family.
Yeah.
And it's like, on one hand, it's a beautiful thing. It's a privilege. On the other hand, it's fucking scary. It's like, wow, I'm the first woman truly just on my own.
Yeah.
On my own. What does that mean? So then back to when you had these dreams and this realization, most people will say you can heal within a relationship. You can do this with your partner.
Yeah.
What was so clear to you that you have to do this on your own?
Yeah. And that's a really good piece. And Mark and I actually lived in that truth for a very long time, actually. We were like, we can heal this. We can heal this. We did everything. Every therapist, every book, everything you could possibly think of, we tried it on. And that was just it. Like at the end of actually going all in to try to heal whatever was in the way of us being able to progress and move forward, you get to the point where like, well, the only thing we haven't tried was actually listening to the dream and honoring that this might not actually be right. And, that's like from the more rational perspective, somatically, Mark and I were both energetically draining and dead. Like I was very sick towards the end of relationship 1.0, like so sick that I almost couldn't even get out of bed.
When you're only working on your relationship, it's a lot.
You both wanted to work so bad. Like that was what makes it so hard, in relationship 1.0 is we never did anything bad to each other. We were both kind and loving and we wanted it to work. Right. And so that's what makes it more challenging is like, there's not a lot of material to be like, oh, I'm going to leave because of this. It's like, no, I'm going to leave because they're loving and they support me and they want the best.
People are like, are you off?
Yeah. Why would you leave that?
Yeah. So it ultimately came down to trusting something bigger, wiser, and deeper for both of us that didn't make rational sense. And really, it was trusting the unknown.
Yeah. I think what you brought up is something that people think about too a lot when they're like going through something with a relationship. Like, am I with the wrong partner? Is it me? Like, did you have any of those? Or did you know like this is something going on with me?
Well, what I can share my strategy for staying in the relationship and what kind of made Mark and I's wounds kind of puzzle piece together is Mark had always historically taken on the savior role of like, I can fix it. I can help you. I can support you. And he's the coach, he's the relationship expert. So, and I'm the problem. And so I have all this stuff that I need to fix. And so it was just kind of that dynamic, problem and fixer. And oh gosh, the amount of shame I just kept swallowing to stay in that role of like, I'm broken. There's something wrong with me. And eventually Mark got to the place, and luckily he did, where he's like, if you have to stay broken to stay in this relationship, this isn't going to work. And I'm like, you're right.
Boom.
Right.
You're
That's
right.
it.
This isn't going to work. And so, we both got to the conclusion that, you know what, for whatever reason, the way this relationship dynamic or blueprint, the way it's connected right now is limiting and not in service to us both.
And that's a good framework for people to think about too, because I think we often think about, if both people try hard enough, if we use all of our resources and all of the therapy and books and everything, we can get through this together. But there is a scenario where you both tried your best and you've done as much as you can, but there needs to be work done independently, and which leads you to you taking a sacred pause. We are very much looking forward to understanding what a sacred pause is. Can you take us through the beginning of this breakup and the sacred pause?
Yeah. So when we finally reached the end of our emotional rope in relationship 1.0, there was, a breakup, a closing. And one of the things that I just want to name for your listeners and also for you, what was really cool about that is Mark really made sure that I was taking ownership for my truth.
Yes.
And he was not going to let me just him take control. He was like, no, you need to say it. You need to name it, because you need to be in integrity with your internal world, with your intuition, with your soul, with what, and I was like, oh gosh, I don't want to be the one to have to do it. You know?
You're like, now you're making me be the one that breaks up.
Why is he so right?
I look back on it now and I'm like, I can't believe that was ever me. But it was like, yeah, I was just so in it. But just even the contract of me having to break it was so liberating and so necessary. Yeah. So we had that conversation, and then we both entered into our own separate healing journeys. One of the things that we were very clear on, and well, Mark was super crystal clear on, I was not as clear as him, was that we were not getting back together. Mm-hmm. Like for Mark, it was like, we are complete. And for me, I was like, I don't know.
It's a pause.
Yeah.
I don't know. It might work. There might be, you know, of course I'm hooked into hope. I'm like, there's a possibility, because you never know. So one of the things that really emerged in that rupture with Mark and that breakup was just how disconnected I was from anger, just how disconnected I was from my whole internal experience, and how I'd been living in a state of freeze, a state of disassociation, not being able to actually be in relationship with my own internal emotional realm, with my own needs, with my own voice. And yeah, the breakup opened the door to doing a lot of that intergenerational healing work that I did not know I needed to do. And also a lot of the work to process and metabolize the reality of being a woman under patriarchal
system,
institute, rule. I'm like,
I love the hand movements for all of our listeners out
dictatorship.
There. You're like, all of it, all the shit.
I know, it's like,
all the
like,
shit.
I'm just like, you know, when I always say that word, I want to like give a caveat, like this is just such a longer conversation, but so much started to come into focus for me of like what was actually in the way. Because one of the things I was really clear about after that breakup was whatever was in the way needed to be addressed, because I never want to get to that place again where there's stuff in the way of me being able to like access choice and agency. And so that led me in a lot of different directions. But one of the most pivotal conversations for me was with Mark Wolin, the author of It Didn't Start With You, who does a lot of work with family systems, family constellation therapy. Anyways, I was on a 2-hour call with this guy. And before I got on the call, I was like, I don't really need this conversation or session. Like I'm already doing the work and I'm good. Within 15 minutes, he had nailed my core pattern in relationship. And he was like, if you want to change the way you relate with men, you need to enter into, I forgot what he called it, but you need to remove men from your life for a specific amount of time.
The man diet.
We were going to ask you about
this.
Yes,
no man diet.
No man diet makes more sense than man
There's
diet.
so much divinity to this path, you know, when you say yes to walking in alignment with your healing journey and your truth, and you just kind of fully surrender. At this point, I was so fully surrendered. I was like, okay, give it to me all. Whatever's in the way, I need to clear it. So give me the right guides, people, support, etc. I'll do it. I'm saying yes to everything. So he was like, okay, so here's the deal. Based off of your core imprint with mother, you learned that at a very young age, in order for you to be okay, you need to orient your consciousness around them, make sure they're okay so that you're okay.
Wait, them being men or them being your mothers, the mothers figures?
Well, he was like, man is mother. So the way you oriented towards your mother in early childhood is how you orient towards men now until you do the mother work. And I was like,
oh, wait, that's the mother wound then?
That's a component of the mother wound, yes. I mean, the mother wound.
Yeah, could you explain this more?
Yeah, I will. It's the juicy center that we don't like to touch in our culture because there's so much there. So yeah, right. Like we come born into the planet 100% dependent on mother to take care of our needs and to support us into becoming who we are today. And, you know, our society in general and culture does not honor mother, does not honor the mother-baby dyad, does not support the family system and being able to attune to a child and meet their developmental needs in the way that they would need in order to become whole, sovereign, interdependent, confident beings. Instead, we have a lot of disruption in our core attachments based off of the way our culture orients towards this very important relationship, the mother-baby dyad. Anyways, if our mothers aren't able to be regulated, attuned to our needs over time, when those needs aren't met consistently with care, with regulation, then right, there's ruptures that take place. And as a young baby, what you learn is like, okay, well, if it's obviously not them, it must be me. So I'm the problem. I need to fix it. And so we start to learn how to find safety and security by managing our external environment, by managing mother at the expense of our connection to our internal world. And I know that's a lot of words.
So are we abandoning self in order to cater to the external relationship?
Yeah, you disconnect from yourself. So at the core of that pattern is I'm going to disconnect from myself. I'm going to orient my consciousness around other, mother, men, intuit what they need. So what do they need? How can I support them? How can I make them okay so that I'm okay? So at the expense of self until eventually that pattern is no longer sustainable and things implode, and whether the relationship blows up, etc. So that same core imprint from early childhood will then be translated into partnerships in young adulthood and then adulthood if we don't actually address them.
Interesting. I was going to ask you, like, sometimes, when people break up, there's a camp of people that's like, oh, it's all on them. I'll just find someone that fits me better. Like, I don't need to change anything on my side. But it sounds like you immediately went to like, what do I need to do? Yeah. Or like it was kind of on me. Like, is that something that you've seen like baked in to your psyche, like with this mother wound even before this situation? Like, how did you like immediately go to, I need to do the work?
Yeah, I think there's many shades to that narrative specifically. And I think the emotional root of that narrative really matters in this conversation. Because before, where it's like, I'm the problem, I'm broken, was coming from a root of shame. Yeah. Like, there's something wrong with me, I need to fix it. I'm taking on more responsibility than is actually mine. And that's very dysfunctional and unhealthy, right? And I find that a lot of, well, I don't know, it's hard to say because I know that a lot of women actually relate more with Mark's story in the book sometimes than mine.
Yes, we were saying that too. Yeah.
So it's like, it's so interesting to kind of feel that and like navigate that, because I'm like, is it more women or is it more men that actually resonate with being the broken one? I don't know at this time. I think it's both.
I think it's both from what we've talked, from who we've talked to. Yeah.
So the different emotional root of me saying the same thing was actually coming from like, instead of shame, it was coming from anger of like, I'm so frustrated because I want a partnership so bad. I want to move forward in my life. I want to move forward and create a family. Like, I was so upset that I was like, I'll do anything. So it came from more of like a deeply loving and surrendered place instead of there's something wrong with me and I need to fix. And that's the difference. And I think it's a key distinction.
I see. No, that is big. So that was something, because I know you were saying like before you met Mark, you were like, I don't want to do relationships. I don't want to do love. So like by being with him, you realized you did want that stuff, but there was still something getting in your way.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, after divorce, I was like, maybe I'm polyamory. Like, what the? No,
of course. Yeah.
I was like so terrified of love and intimacy that I was like, how do I keep my hand like this at a distance? And that's the funny thing about looking back now. It was like, oh, you were just so hurt. You were in so much pain, so scared of ever having to feel those feelings again, that you were like, let's take the safe route. And what Mark and our relationship taught me was like, I am capable of being with the grief of endings and truths and hard stuff. And that can all be in service to deeper levels of intimacy and love in ways that historically were not modeled or templated out for me.
So if I'm understanding your journey correctly, basically you find this man who is your ideal. I mean, this is the guy we all want to be with, who's committed to growth, who's committed to growing with you and healing with you. And you still felt that there were obstacles. There was something standing between you and this happiness that you could have and who is right in front of you. Yeah. So you start exploring with another Mark. I love that the other guy's name is Mark too, who lets you know that there's this thing called the mother wound where you've kind of like oriented your needs around this other person who is man, mother, and you've abandoned self. Yep. So because your universe is centered around this other person, you haven't looked inward and understood what you need and how you can stand independently without the other person, which then leads to the no man diet, because that's what the other Mark suggests. So tell us about, what does the no man diet consist of? Because I am very interested in letting my friend know. She's very interested in what a no man diet is. She just doesn't know where to even start.
Yeah. You just did a beautiful job of explaining my journey in like 2 sentences. So
yeah, I'm trying to understand because it's so fascinating.
Well done. Well done. I'm impressed. You almost said it better than I could ever say it. So I'm just going to take that. Yeah. So his recommendation was, I forgot his recommendation in terms of like actually how to create a container where I remove men, any romantic interest from my life. But I didn't need to do that work under his guidance. He opened the door of like, you need to do this. And then Kendrick Kunov, who is the creator of the No Man Diet, dropped into my field divinely. I reached out to one of my girlfriends in Australia. I was like talking about John Wineland. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to look into that. And she's like, no. You don't need to work with John Wineland. You need to work with the female counterpart who actually is like dialed and just beyond. And so I was like, oh, okay. So I go to her website and sure enough, enrollment for the No Man Diet begins tomorrow or something. And I'm like, okay, didn't even know this person existed or something like this existed. So I enrolled in this No Man Diet and it brought up everything that I did not know existed in my unconscious realm. I said yes to this container, which for the listeners and for those who haven't read the book was a 3-month agreement to remove dating, relating with men. Specifically romantic interests. So no sexting, no seeking, no reaching out on Instagram, no none of that. No romantic kindling of any kind.
No men.
Just nada, zero. And for me, I've always felt safer with men than I did with women. So this was a really big deal. Like I would always kind of lean into my male friendships to build companionship than relating with women because of my sister wounds and all the wounds that I needed to heal with the feminine. But this was why this container was so important for me. But initially when I entered into it, my nervous system went full tilt. I was like, I'm going to die. Like that's how deep the fear was of being alone and being without men or having a man to lean on to support me. I was just like, oh my gosh.
Because it couldn't even be in like a platonic sense.
No. I mean, yes and no. Like everybody has their own container that they create. Yes, no's, maybe. I did have platonic male friendships, but I did not resource from those friendships in the same way that I have historically. Like I still allowed them to exist, but instead of reaching out to a man to soothe me emotionally and like talk to, I was actually now devoted to reaching out to a few very trusted sisters and friends.
Sisters.
I like that.
Yeah.
You're not like, I'm cutting you out of my life, but you're like, I just won't go to you first.
Yeah, and another key component was a family boundary that I needed to put in place. So I, as somebody who related as like the damsel in distress and always needing guidance and somebody help me, save me, etc., I had relied heavily on external guidance. And especially from my father. And I love my father and he's a very integral, great man. But like his voice, the father's voice took up so much space in my consciousness. So if there was like a comment, it would like take me weeks to kind of come back to my center and like figure out who am I and like disentangle from those narratives. And I knew that was a part of my sticky point. So I put a family boundary in place where I was like, I am not open to receiving guidance, advice, thoughts, etc. on my relationship, on where I'm living, on anything, because at this time, it's crucial for me to get really clear about what's going on internally and reconnect with myself.
I want to dive into this even more, but before we do, let's take a quick break to hear from our partners. Summer has flown by, and I can't believe we're already gearing up for fall. Fall is by far my favorite time of year, from the start of cuffing season to the fall fashion. Luckily, Quince makes shifting your wardrobe a breeze and a little too much fun because of their timeless and high-quality items that allows my wardrobe to stay fresh without blowing my budget. The best part, all Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. I got their signature cashmere sweater and tan for only $50, and I cannot get over the price point for how silky soft the quality is. And I just feel so fancy that I have cashmere in my closet now, and even happier that I got it at that affordable price. By partnering directly with top factories, Quince cuts out the cost of the middleman and passes the savings on to us. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. Make switching seasons a breeze with Quince's high-quality closet essentials. Go to quince.com/dateable for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/dateable to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/dateable.
I love my shower time. See, I'm an evening showerer because I like to wash off the day before I hop into bed. And now with Osea's new Ondaria algae body wash, my shower routine has turned into a tropical paradise with its iconic all-natural uplifting citrusy scent. This body wash infuses your shower with the healing power of the sea, formulated with nourishing, nutrient-rich Ondaria seaweed, glycerin, and an oil blend. Also, its pH balance, hydrating formula doesn't strip skin, leaving it feeling soft and renewed. I'm personally a big fan of the gel-like texture. It just feels really nice in my hands, and it's beautiful, rich lather. And the all-natural citrusy scent that smells so vibrant. You just feel like you just went, I don't know, surfing? Even I don't surf at all. It leaves my skin feeling so wonderful and, can I just even say glamorous? Upgrade your shower with clean, vegan face and body care from Osea. Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code DATEABLE at OseaMalibu.com. You'll get free samples with every order and free shipping on orders over $60. Head to OSEAMalibu.com and use the code DATEABLE for 10% off. Do you ever feel like you want to enjoy the little things in life a little more? Really stop and savor the moment? Well, Via Gummies can really help with that. Slowing things down to be in the present. Trusted by over 250,000 customers, Via's hemp products are the Swiss Army knife of wellness. Need to chill out after a long day? There's a Via gummy for that. Dealing with anxiety or stress? There's a gummy for that. Want to set the mood in the bedroom? Oh yeah, there's a gummy for that, because Via has developed a unique blend of pleasure-enhancing, libido-strengthening herbs and a medium dose of THC all into one mind-blowing gummy called High Love. Their best-selling High Love gummy is my go-to because it awakens my senses and increases blood flow, making me feel so present in the moment. So if you're over 21, head to viahemp.com and use the code DATEABLE to receive 15% off. That's VIIAHEMP.com and use the code DATEABLE at checkout. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Take your passion and pleasure to a whole new level with High Love from Via Hemp.
I can relate to that. I feel like even, in my 40s, sometimes I'm like, the voice of my parents is like so loud and you're like, I need to just trust myself a little,
Yeah. So you're not orienting yourself to men in any which way, not just romantically, but even for guidance, etc. Okay.
Like even that choosing Kendra Kunaud's container. It wasn't a male guide. It was a female guide. It was a woman who actually had walked through the path, who could actually support me and hold me to something that I don't think a man could.
That's interesting that you were going to go to a man first.
Yeah.
Like that you were thinking of doing that.
And a lot of women do go to John Weiland.
Oh, I know.
As part of this journey. So that's really interesting that this person intercepted.
Well, there's a lot of just like patriarchal stuff too of like that men know, like there's a lot of that stuff that bleeds unconsciously.
Oh, it's so internalized. Oh my gosh. So much of our work right now is to like externalize that and really dismantle all of those patriarchal narratives that are still interfering with our ability to stand in congruency with self and soul and the feminine.
So what did you learn from doing the No Man diet?
Oh my gosh, what didn't I learn? I learned how deeply afraid I was to be alone. I learned that not only my fear of being alone, I also learned how afraid I was of my own power. Because for so long I'd been disconnected from my power, from my inner fire, my inner gatekeeper, that I was terrified to open the door to, more of me, to more of what I know and more of what I believe in, more of what I stand for. And the reason I was terrified of that is because I knew that opening the door to reclaiming that power, that fire, that agency would disrupt every single relationship in my life, especially the key ones, like the ones I had with my mother, the ones I had with my father, the ones that I've had with longstanding friends that had related to me in a previous way of being the Kai that, for the most part was like easygoing, yes, not a lot of confrontation, didn't really speak up, didn't really stand for anything, but kind of just went along to go along. And now, as you can probably tell, my energetics have shifted drastically where I have a lot to say and I feel very clear and passionate about that. What really took place in that is like in the reclamation of my own power, I handed back stuff that I was carrying that wasn't mine to carry. The responsibility of people's emotional well-being is not mine to carry fully. Like, yes, I'm in relationship with people, but I'm not going to carry all of your stuff and caretake.
What's an example of just like something that you were carrying that you realized that you're like, I don't need to be carrying this?
Yeah, I think so. Like, for instance, in Mark and I's relationship 1.0 dynamic, I was carrying the burden that it was all my fault, that I was the broken one. It was not all my fault. There were patterns at play from his side that were just as dysfunctional. and needed to brought into awareness just as much as on my side, you know? And then, you know, other ways that this showed up is I took on a lot of internalized shame. Like, again, you're probably hearing a theme here of like, yeah, I'll just swallow everybody else's pain and not actually hand it back to them because it's easier.
You've absorbed it.
I absorbed it. I absorbed a lot. And I'm sure many of us can relate to that, of like taking on other people's pain and absorbing it without actually being like, I can't carry this. This isn't mine to carry. And it's actually not even loving to carry, you know? It's not loving to carry other people's emotional pain and to remain small or to remain complicit in dynamics that are not actually deeply loving and reverential. Where that really came in for me was in my relationship with mother, truly. Like that was a big piece, is like for so long I had just been a caretaker and emotional caretaker of my family system. And I was done doing that. So I kind of handed everybody back their bags and was like, we're not playing this game anymore. Like we're going to have real conversations. I'm going to actually share like when things hurt me and what's not mine. And I didn't always have to have the conversation. What's so fascinating to me about this work is just even in my devotion to like no longer be the emotional punching bag and no longer be the one that's the broken one or the problem, and instead actually bring voice to all the shadows and all the shit that I see happening. Yeah, it really liberated everyone.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's also liberating to hear just that analogy. I mean, I'm picturing, you know, someone bringing on their bags to you and they want to check it with you. Yeah. Like, here's my check bag. And you're like, no, it's a carry-on only policy.
Absolutely.
Like, you carry that shit.
Yep.
There's so much dynamic in that if you think about it, because if you're checking in someone's bag, you are bearing the burden, the weight of that bag, even if it's for a short amount of time. And then they get to fly with both hands and they're light and they're free.
Right.
Why is that on you when they're the one that packed that bag in the first place?
That's so fascinating. I mean, I guess like when you hear no man diet, you think, well, okay, I just won't ever talk to men again, especially if I'm feeling this good and I'm uncovering all this stuff. Obviously, that's not the case. Like, how did you kind of ease back in and decide like, okay, I do want men in my life, but I want to still be able to like stand on my own at the same time?
Yeah, I got so comfortable in that container. It was the first time I truly like, it was like, oh my gosh, I was like so relaxed and so soft and so open. Wow. Like, I don't think we realize how disconnected we are from our bodies. Like when you actually remove something that where all of your consciousness, and I kind of depict this codependency as like all of our consciousness is moving up and out instead of down and in our energy, instead of going down and in to the roots, to our feet, it's going up and out. And it's like being siphoned in all these different ways. I started to feel my body. And it was like so emotional and tender, like this resensitization process that happened in that container. It was like, oh, I can feel my womb again. Oh, I can feel my fire. Oh my gosh, I know what it feels like to have my feet on the ground for the first time in my life. I could feel it. I could feel the energy. And it was something that I had not experienced before. And so it's like, not only was that just so empowering for me, but once you start to feel that, you don't want to lose it. And that was what I was very clear on, is like, okay, I feel really good. And I now have some contrast from my previous experience in relationship to what it now feels like to be embodied and to be connected and to be in congruency with myself. And I got to the point at the end of that no man diet that I was like, I will not go backwards. I will not disassociate. I will not self-abandon. Now, of course, those patterns still show up here and there, but they only last for minutes now because I can't sustain it anymore. But towards the end of the container, I don't know, for some reason, I felt so good. I felt clear, but I also felt ready. Like I was like, you know what? I'm ready to feel what it feels like to be in relationship as this new version of me. Like, what does relationship look like when I'm in my mature feminine, when I'm in my adult, embodied, sovereign self? Like, it was like so foreign to me too, but I also felt really confident because I had connection to my body, to my anger, to my boundaries and my limits in ways that I had not historically had access to. Now, with that being said, of course, when I opened up the conversation with Mark and we agreed to explore relationship 2.0, there were some nerves that came forward of like, oh my gosh, am I going to fall back into old patterns? And am I going to, create the same dynamic? And so I had to really know where my tender spots were, know where my weaknesses were and what I was still like strengthening within self. So I create agreements. We create shared agreements in that dating container, which for your listeners, we agreed to date for 3 months before we had a conversation around whether or not we were going to move forward in committed partnership again and give it give it another go. Some of the agreements that were very important for me in that container was no penetrative sex and no financial support, right? Because so much of my journey with money was like, if I received something, it could have been a financial hook and I would have felt obligated, or I kind of would have hit me in the wrong way to distort my ability to connect with myself. So I knew like, don't receive support in that way right now. Not for the first 3 months, because it might muddle your ability to see or feel clearly.
Yeah.
Those are the big ones.
Monogamous
Yes.
in this container.
Yes. Sorry, that was another big one. We were no longer dating other people, but for that 3 months, we would be monogamous and we would be exploring our connection together. And that 3-month container is what allowed me to exit the No Man diet, I believe, because there was containment around it. And that containment allowed me to feel safe in the exploration of what was actually right.
And it was more gradual. You weren't just like, I'm not going to talk to any man now. I'm just like fucking everyone. Like there's like,
exactly.
Like there had to be a ease
I'm
in.
a carnivore now. I'm full man diet.
I'm hungry. I'm shifting. Oh, damn.
Wait, but how did you decide that it was Mark that you were going to experiment with? Was that very clear during your No Man diet?
You know, it's so funny. So much of this stuff, I feel so guided by my soul and divine. Like I just like it came in and it was just like, let's see what's here. And I really wanted to see what was possible. It was still in my consciousness in a really big way, I would say. And what I will say in the No Man diet, though, I fully had to release Mark. Like fully released the idea and possibility of us getting back together. That was a key component that I needed to actually process and metabolize in the container of the No Man diet before this dating container would even emerge. Because if I hadn't fully released the idea and processed and grieved the ending, I don't think it would have been possible to actually create a new dynamic. So I just share that for clarity purposes. But yeah, I don't know. I emerged on the other side and I was like, I want to see what's here. I want to see if there's a different way for us to move forward.
So I always like timelines because it helps put it in perspective. You were 3 months No Man diet.
Yeah.
How many months later was this that you reconnected with Mark since when you broke up?
10 months.
Okay. So a lot of time had come by.
Yeah, a lot of time.
Like almost a year.
Almost a year. Yeah, almost a year. And Mark and I had our connection points within that year, which we talk about in the book a little bit, where we'd touch in and be like, oh, nope, this is definitely not it. Definitely not right. Definitely. Like our bodies were like, no. And so we were like, okay, like complete, like so many things that had to heal and release to be able to emerge to this more open and non-attached dating container, if you will.
How do you do this unattached? Because I can see people asking, how do you release someone when you still have so much hope within that relationship? How do you get over the fact that maybe this person had already moved on by the time you came out of this No Man diet?
Oh, trust me. I met both of those narratives full on in that container. Was like, and actually one of those narratives specifically, the one that drove me to break the container, which I talk about in the book, was I'm going to lose him forever if I don't reach out. So I actually broke my container and my word to myself and reached out to Mark inside the No Man diet container, which I mean, was the biggest teaching point and lesson point for me in that whole journey, because it hurt real bad to like start to feel myself again and feel empowered and feel like solid, and then break it because that fear took over and was like, you're going to lose him forever. And so then I was like, oh my God, I'm going to lose him forever. So I broke the container.
Yeah.
My body I literally was in a trauma response for 48 hours, like shaking, just like, wow, I really, really did not honor myself. And it was a big learning moment for both Mark and I. And in the wake of the pain of that rupture with self, that's when I doubled down on my devotion to my soul, where I was like, okay, you're releasing this altogether. You will never break your own word again. And so I had to go in even deeper into the container and actually expand it because I had broken the container. So I was like, okay, now I need to double down even more because there's still more work to do here. So yeah, those fears are going to come up and need to be metabolized for sure. And how we do that will look different based off of our own specific journeys.
What do you mean by expanding the container and going deeper even more?
So I broke my No Man diet container. I had set a container for 3 months, and I think about 2.5 months I broke it. So I actually reached out to Mark. We connected in person, we had sex, and it was like that fear. It was like, I'm going to lose him forever if I don't. So I broke my own container, went all the way. And my body after that engagement, my body was so upset with me. Like it was a really hard moment for me, but it was necessary. I had to break that to even become aware of how strong that narrative was for me specifically of like being able to lose him, then I'd be like, okay, well now you got to grieve that because you have to be open to losing him forever now. Like you need to be over this. And so what I mean by expanded it, I added another 4 weeks onto the container of the No Man diet.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Okay. A longer container.
It's almost like a relapse.
Yeah.
You know, like it like showed you it was a relapse. Like you hear this like with, you know, in AA and stuff, it's like that breaking point. And then oftentimes it compels you to like double down on it more because it's a wake up call, right?
Totally.
So obviously you two, you know, went through this container. You're now married with child. So things worked out, we could say. But how did you, like you started off saying that there were so many like fears that were getting in your way of entering this, like, you know, going all in, like from your last marriage. Obviously you did a ton of work in that 10 months that got you to a different place. But how else did you start to overcome the fears to be like, okay, this marriage isn't going to be like my last one, or when I get married, I can still stand on my own 2 feet and be my own person?
You know, no one's asked me that question yet. So I'm sitting with that for a second of like, how did I get over it? And I'm trying to locate like how much space fear actually had in my consciousness. After a few really big conversations in that dating container where I modeled to myself that I would not abandon from my truth, from my knowing, from my values, after noticing and being witness to myself in those dynamics of not collapsing where I historically would have, all of my fears really kind of dissolved because I was like, oh, I'm good. I've got my own back. Like I can trust myself now, right? Like at the end of the day, what it comes down to for me, where the trust outweighs the fear was like, I know that no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay. Like no matter what happens in my relationship with Mark, I'm going to be okay. I've already survived everything. Since I have that felt sense of okayness of like trust in self, trust in the path, trust in truth, trust in whatever is unfolding, there's just so much more softness around it where there's nothing, I've got nothing to hide, you know? Mark and I have nothing to hide. It's just such a different orientation towards marriage, towards partnership, unlike anything I've ever experienced in my life, which is why we wrote a book about it. But any fear that came up was voiced. But I got to tell you, Julie, not a lot of fears. Like it was weird.
Great. Well, you got secure with yourself,
right?
Ultimately.
Yeah, ultimately.
Yeah, trusting yourself. And how did you get over the dynamic of the savior versus the broken one?
Yeah.
Because I can see two people coming back into that relationship and being like, oh, I'm healed. And the other person be like, I haven't changed at all because I was the fine one.
Oh, do I know that? You know what's so beautiful about Mark is he's willing to take responsibility for his side of the street. And actually, one of the main reasons why it was safe to get back together was because Mark started to name how that specific pattern of him being the savior and him always needing to fix was actually his own survival strategy and actually was disempowering to me. And he was sourcing from that dynamic as well. So just even him having the awareness to be able to notice that and pull things out of his shadow really allowed us to have enough safety to bear witness to all of these patterns in a new way. So luckily there were points of that, but I will say like there's been openness and curiosity on both sides in our relationship 2.0, where it's like, we know that neither one of us is fully healed. We both have our blind spots. We both have stuff that we're working through. And the beautiful thing that Mark and I always talk about now, and even, you know, through relationship 2.0 is when something's coming up for one of us, it's coming up for both of us. And we orient to that in a new way of curiosity, of love, of grace, to like explore what's really going on here between us, because it's all information. It's all medicine if we turn towards it in a good way. So that was a big piece. And then also, you know, when you become secure in yourself, like you said, it shifts the dynamic, right? So like when Mark and I got back together in 2.0, that narrative of like being healed and fixed and nothing wrong completely had to shift, because I was like, no. You have your own stuff. I have my stuff, and we're going to look at it together. And I'd say most of that work that happened in that dynamic was actually him moving his more anxiously attached nervous system into a more secure place through me being in security. So like he was able to trust through my solidity, my clarity, me again, which allowed him to soften that anxious alarm and like over time, soften it, restore trust with self, restore trust with me, where now he feels, more connected to his self, his needs, his stuff that he had historically not been connected to at all. So Mark and I always say like our healing has been a leapfrog, where it's like one person will heal and grow and then the other person.
That's so true though, because it's like if you're always like anxious and focusing on the other person, it doesn't give you the opportunity to like look at what's going on within you. Yeah. So it's like the other side of the same coin.
The same coin.
I mean,
right?
Yeah. Like I know when I listened to you guys on another podcast and what you said about the part about like when it's one person's stuff, it's both of ours, that really resonated because I feel like it's so easy to be like, this is your thing to fix. Like, I'm okay. This is your thing. I guess what advice would you have for anyone that's like in the thick of it right now, whether they're single or partnered, that feels like they're, you know, falling more on the anxious or avoidance side? Like, what's kind of like something you would, I know there's probably so much advice you'd give them, but maybe like one thing you would give them to like start to move towards their healing journey?
Well, I think so much of this healing journey, you know, for me, but also within partnership has to do with understanding the shared nervous system. So really being in connection to your own nervous system, to your own like self-attunement to your own system and your own nervous system needs so that you can resource and have capacity to show up in new ways is really crucial. But also, right, like as you have more capacity within yourself, you start to notice different patterns and ways of being in other, and you can orient to those patterns and different ways of being in new ways where historically you might have just responded or reacted in a historical way. There's now more space and capacity to turn towards it or to change how we're meeting certain things. So one of the sayings that always comes to my mind in this is, it's funny because it's like, yes, what comes up for one is for both, like to be shared and worked through together. But on the other side of that is like, stay in your own lane, you know?
Yes.
Like,
yes. How do you balance the two? How do you not absorb their baggage like we talked about earlier?
Exactly. There's like this really big dance that's happening in all of this interpersonal realm of things and so there was times where it's like where I would notice the heightened activation in a nervous system and it's like, you know, of course I wanted to respond and maybe move towards or what, and I was just like, stay in your own lane. Yeah. Let them be in their own activation. Stop trying to fix, stop trying to change, and vice versa. Of like when Mark would interfere or say, it's like, stay in your own lane. I don't need that right now. You know, so really just balancing those two pieces of like understanding the shared nervous system, but also understanding your nervous system in relationship to other nervous systems and asking yourself, okay, how can I in this moment hit the pause button to create more space, more possibility to relate from the present moment instead of from historical scripts? That is where I believe real choice comes into play in our interpersonal dynamics. And what I'm after in liberated love is like being able to access real choice in the moment based off of the present material instead of just being in loops of autopilot based off of historical material that hasn't been integrated and processed. That's a big answer to your question, but that's...
No, it's huge though. I love the distinction of the two parts because I can see how someone can misinterpret that and take it on.
Well, you want to support. You want to be there, create the container to support, but with boundaries.
Yes.
That's what it sounds like, without sacrificing your needs and who you are, but also having this openness and curiosity around what does this open up for us in our relationship dynamic.
Yep.
This has been such a fascinating conversation. I mean, so many takeaways. I'm realizing that I did a no-man diet without actually going through a program. And I actually think like, you know, this was like after a huge breakup of mine. I didn't date or like have any interactions. I basically did a dating sabbatical for close to a year. And I think that time though really shifted the way, I think everything you were saying about just putting yourself first, like as women especially, sometimes it feels selfish. Sometimes it feels like I need to cater to the other person. But that was such a game changer for me of like, one, even knowing my needs. I think for so long I just like repressed them, but then also being able to articulate them and ask for what I needed. And that was a complete game changer. Like I actually had a reconnection with an ex. That's not who I'm with today. So my relationship 2.0 did not work out the same way yours did, but we also did not put in intentional containers at all. But I do remember him being like, you're a different person than when we dated the first time, because I wasn't afraid to like say stuff. And I think that is something that has really changed the way I have a relationship today, is that when something's on my mind, I bring it up. I say it. Like, I don't hold back. And I think in the past, I very much did. And, you know, so much of what you said, just like, it shows where it came from. Like, there's so much conditioning that's happening that we're just like not even aware of. And I think men deal with this, but women, like, there's different instances that affect both of us.
Absolutely.
So that was a huge takeaway for me. I think, like, in general too, this whole notion of this savior / like the person that needs to get, like, that's broken, that needs to get fixed. Like, I think recognizing, like, you can only control yourself. And also, it's actually a better relationship when they do it on their own. Like, I think it's tempting to want to help someone out, especially if you think you know the way. Like, I relate to Mark as someone that, like, does this dating podcast. Sometimes I'm like, I know the way. And I'm like, oh, I need to just, like, pull that back because, like, I don't know the way in this situation. And it's also, like, something that builds the trust with other people, right? Is like, if you're always telling someone what to do, that's not going to build that self-trust. And I loved hearing that, like, for both of you, your relationship is actually 10 times better now because you both stand on your own and you're not trying to work in that dynamic.
Yeah, it's really beautiful, the journey that we've witnessed from both of your sides of the story, because it shows that both people are working through stuff. Everybody's working through something. And we really appreciated that. When we spoke to Mark, he was able to own some of the whatever he was working through and also say, listen, like, we're both just real people working through real issues, and not one person is more evolved or more enlightened than the other. We're just trying to understand ourselves in this entire journey of love. And this no man diet is so interesting to me because nutritionally and medically, when we try to figure out, like, what are we allergic to or what's spiking our glucose, we do the elimination diet, right? We get that out of our diet system and see what happens. We don't actually do that in relationships or in mental health. We just kind of, I guess a lot of times I find myself just falling into situations, falling into a relationship, falling into, oh, this new form of meditation or this new type of therapy without doing the elimination process. Maybe there is something already in my system that is triggering all of this, that, you know, like, I can be more experimental with that. So there is something to that. It's probably way harder than just eliminating one thing, but we can be more open to experimenting with, like, these different triggers that are already systemic on a daily basis for us. And another big takeaway that I'm hearing from you is oftentimes we fly. Like, that's how we operate in life because we're going forward. We're like traveling somewhere and we think that's progress. But what you did in your sacred pause is that you went down. You went in and down. And that's also progress. And that's a direction many of us have forgotten to take, the rooting, the grounding, because we're just flying as high as possible and as far as possible. So we could all take that sacred pause at any moment in our life to go in and down and root into the ground more. And related to that takeaway is, do you have any practices or exercises that you do currently to get yourself to ground deeper?
Woo! First of all, I think this descent process is the medicine of our times, and we all need to look at that really deeply of why we keep going and flying up. And, you know, our culture loves this ascent model of transcendence. And it's like, actually, we really need to connect back down into our roots and reconnect to the earth, like ASAP. How do I do that? I think, you know, for me right now as a mom, all of my practices have shifted dramatically. So for me, a warm shower is definitely a grounding practice at this time. And, you know, being outside in nature, getting off technology, like shutting it all down for a second and feeling your feet on the ground. It can be as simple as that. Those are really big grounding practices. But this is I could talk to you guys forever on this conversation of the descent and what we're doing right now as a collective. But yeah, my invitation for all of the listeners in even the descent process, and, you know, Julie, even you talked about it, of like reconnecting to your own needs and bringing voice to it. Like, that is a descent. That is a back inward and down instead of up and out. Yeah. So yeah, giving yourself a pause, maybe even just 2 minutes a day, a pause just to check in and feel your feet on the ground and what's going on in your body. That can be a small descent grounding practice that feels tangible and doable.
I love that. That's great. great.
That's lovely.
Anything else you want to leave our audience before we wrap up? You've had so many words of wisdom.
I don't know. I really enjoyed this conversation. I've had so much fun with you both.
So
it's been super sweet. I'd say that, I don't know, the word that keeps coming to my mind right now is possibility. I think we've been told and shown and modeled, what our minds believe is possible. But as we kind of metabolize and departicleize all of those narratives and modeling and imprints, what opens up in terms of the realm of possibility feels really exciting for me in all ways, in every way. So I'd say trust the unknown. Trust the unknown and move towards that edge in whatever way, is your way today, whether that's bringing something to voice that you haven't brought to voice, or sharing a need in a way that you've never shared a need, or disclosing something that you've been holding for far too long, or handing somebody something back that you've been holding of theirs for decades. It's like, whatever it is, let it go and trust what's on the other side of that.
I love that. Initially we were supposed to talk to you and Mark together, but with scheduling, it didn't work out. But I'm so glad it worked out the way it did, because we were able to go super deep with both of you individually. So I'm really glad. That's what I was thinking the whole time.
Yes. I mean, we could actually talk to you forever. Like, I think there could be 3 more hours of this conversation. But for now, if people want to learn more about you and the work that you do, and also get their hands on your book that you co-authored with Mark, Liberated Love, where can they find all that information?
Yeah. So the best place to get the book is at createthelove.com/liberated love, or any place books are sold. And for me, I'm still on Instagram. I know Mark's not, but I'm still kicking it on the gram.
Oh, did he actually get off?
He left Instagram. His account's still there, but he's not active on it. But I'm semi-active. I mean, I don't really post. I don't have the time to post anymore, although I have a lot to say. No. I'm just like, one of these days I'll find my right format for speaking again. But it's at Being is Beautiful. And then my website, KylieMcBeath.com, where you can find me and join the journey.
Awesome. We'll link all that in the show notes. And
awesome.
Maybe there'll even be a clip or two that circulates Instagram from this wonderful conversation.
Amazing. You will have some Instagram content soon.
Great. Give me some content, because I am not making it happen right now.
Thank you so much, Kylie, for being on our show. We're so glad that this worked out. It was such a wonderful conversation. And for everybody listening right now, what would be just also so wonderful back is go get Kylie's book, go find out more about her. And then while you're on the internet, why don't you go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and give us a rating and review for DATEABLE Podcast, 5 stars. And in the body of your review, you can tell us, what did you learn from this conversation? Are you going on a no-man diet? Are you going on a no-date diet? Are you going on a no technology diet? Like, what is this next diet that you're all going on? We'd love to hear more about that. Or maybe something sparked for you, an idea or a new way of thinking. Let us know in the comments, and then pre-order our book, How to Be Dateable. I think this conversation is probably one of the most dateable conversations we've had. It shows that you never stop dating in a relationship. No. You create these containers, and even married with kids, you are still dating your partner.
Even more so.
Yes, more so. Thank you for reminding us of that. You never stop dating. You can pre-order howtobedateable.com. Our book comes out in January. We're so excited for that. Your future self will thank you if you pre-order today.
Yes.
Okay. We're going to wrap up this conversation. Thank you again, Kylie.
Stay dateable.
People are driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. The hiring process can be slow and overwhelming. Simplify hiring with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform. With over 350 million global monthly visitors according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ12. That's Indeed.com/PODKATZ12. Terms and conditions apply.
Ready to level up your career? Text DISH to 44043 now to dive into a world of exciting technician opportunities at DISH. From cutting-edge technology to a supportive work environment, DISH offers the perfect platform for your success. Connect with us today to discover how you can be part of a dynamic team driving innovation. Connect today and join the DISH family, where innovation meets opportunity. Text DISH to 44043 to kickstart your journey towards a rewarding career.